The first rule of the Galactic Defense Academy was carved into the obsidian gates in 27 languages. Gravity is truth. The second rule wasn't written anywhere, but every non-human cadet understood it the moment they arrived. Humans were not supposed to survive here. Varkesh Prime rotated slowly beneath a red dwarf, its surface locked at a brutal 6.2 standard gravities. It was a world chosen deliberately, by ancient consensus, for one purpose only, to break arrogance out of young officers before it turned into expensive wars. Bones bent. Pride snapped. Species learned their limits. The parade ground was a killing floor disguised as training. Black alloy stretched for kilometers, pitted with stress fractures from past failures. Above it, grav field generators hummed like predators digesting a meal. Cadets stood in formation, every one of them elite by their species standards. And every one of them was struggling. Weighted mass bars lay at their feet, 3,000 kilograms each, inert alloy calibrated to be unforgiving. The exercise was simple. Lift. Hold. Walk 10 meters. Collapse with dignity. Few managed even the first step. A Kthari shock trooper snarled as his segmented legs buckled, mandibles clicking in pain. And Avexion's wings trembled violently before snapping inward with a wet crack. The Gorlathi, walking slabs of sentient stone, managed to raise their bar a few centimeters before gravity reminded them of humility. Above them all stood Commandant Rathkel. He was old, even by Mantis Lord standards. His carapace bore the scars of 7 wars and 1 genocide he never spoke of. His bladed forelimbs rested calmly on the railing as his compound eyes tracked failure after failure with detached approval. "This is instruction," he clicked, voice amplified across the yard. "Not punishment. Your bodies lie to you. Gravity does not." A cadet collapsed completely, twitching. Medical drones moved in. Rathkel turned slightly, already bored. Then he noticed the human. She stood at the back of the formation, hands on her hips, watching. Not panting. Not trembling. Watching. Her uniform was standard academy issue, tailored poorly for a species no one had bothered to understand. Sleeves rolled up, dark hair tied back, boots scuffed. She looked less like a future officer and more like a dockworker who'd taken a wrong shuttle. Her name tag read, Serrano M. Rathkel's translator helpfully provided context. Human. Death world origin. Moderate gravity. No natural armor. No redundant organs. Statistically irrelevant. Human cadet, Rathkel said, mandibles snapping once to draw attention. Step forward. She did. Each footfall rang solid against the alloy. A few nearby cadets shifted uneasily. Predators recognized confidence even when intelligence dismissed it. "You are excused from this exercise," Rathkel continued. "Your species' musculoskeletal limits make participation inefficient." Serrano tilted her head. "Sir," she said, voice calm, "permission to try anyway." A ripple of amusement passed through the ranks. Rathkel felt it too, and allowed it. Failure, after all, was educational. "Granted," he said. "Lift." Serrano approached the nearest mass bar. Up close, it dwarfed her. 3 meters long. Thick as a transport hull spar. The kind of weight that made even veteran soldiers negotiate with physics. She crouched. Wrapped one hand around the bar. And lifted. Not with a roar. Not with a trembling scream of effort. She lifted it the way someone lifted a suitcase they packed themselves. The bar came up cleanly, snapping free of the deck with a metallic clang that echoed across the yard. Silence followed. Not stunned silence. Not disbelief. The kind of silence predators make when something new enters the ecosystem. Serrano straightened fully, the mass bar hanging from one hand at her side. Her arm didn't shake. Her breathing didn't change. She glanced around, confused. "Is it stuck on low gravity mode or something?" The Academy's sensors spiked instantly. Internal alarms whispered through Rathkel's neural implant. Load tolerances exceeded. Biomechanical output inconsistent with predictive models. Probability errors cascading. Rathkel leaned forward. That is not possible, he said. Serrano shrugged, rolled her shoulder, and casually hoisted the bar higher, resting it across her back like a training yoke. Akthari dropped to all fours in instinctive submission. And Avesian fainted outright. The Gorlothi stared, stone faces fissuring. Serrano looked up at the platform. Is this the full weight, sir? Because if there's another plate. Set it down, Rathkel snapped. She did. Gently. The alloy groaned as it kissed the ground. The Commandant's compound eyes narrowed. He had seen bioengineered monsters fail this test. He had watched champions die under less load. You deceive, he said. Serrano wiped her hands on her fatigues. No, sir. Explain. She considered the question. Earth gravity's lighter, she admitted. But we don't get crushed by predators, environments, or each other unless we train for it. So we train, inefficiently. Inefficiently, Rathkel repeated. Painfully, she clarified. A few cadets laughed nervously. Rathkel did not. He raised one blade and gestured. Again. Serrano sighed, actually sighed, then bent down, gripped the bar with one hand again, and lifted it straight overhead. One-handed. Full extension. The gravity field whined in protest. That was when the Academy AI, older than most civilizations, broke silence. Anomaly detected. The word rippled through secured channels. Administrators froze. Instructors stared at their readouts like heresy had just learned to lift weights. Rathkel felt something coil in his thorax. Not anger. Not fear. Recognition. This was not raw strength alone. This was adaptation. This was a species forged by constant competition, internal and external, that had learned to weaponize survival itself. Serrano lowered the bar and looked around. So, she said lightly, do I pass? Rathkel straightened slowly. Yes, he said. You pass. Then, more quietly, so quietly only Serrano's translator picked it up, he added. And you are going to be a problem. She smiled. Far beyond Varkesh Prime, across trade routes and ancient grudges, unseen sensors recorded the data anomaly. Numbers that did not make sense. Curves that bent the wrong way. Somewhere in the dark between stars, something very old adjusted its assumptions about humanity. And began to prepare. By the next cycle, Serrano no longer trained alone. That was the first sign something had gone wrong. The Galactic Defense Academy did not reward talent. It isolated it, dissected it, measured how loudly it screamed when pressure increased. Exceptional cadets were surrounded by observers, not allies. Files were opened. Permissions revoked. Safeties quietly disabled. Serrano noticed immediately. The parade ground exercises doubled in gravity. Then tripled. The instructors claimed a calibration error. The AI logged no such thing. She ran anyway. 6.2 gravities became 7. 7 became 8. At 10, even the Gorlothi were reduced to immobile monuments. Serrano's boots punched cracks into the alloy as she jogged past them, breath steady, face focused. Not effortless. Just controlled. In the observation chamber, Commandant Rathkel watched the feeds without blinking. She should be tearing muscle, one instructor muttered. Microfractures alone. She is tearing muscle, Rathkel replied. She simply rebuilds faster than we expect. They moved her to endurance trials next. The long dark. A sealed corridor maze with fluctuating gravity, temperature spikes, neural disruptors, and no light. Cadets entered in squads. Cadets usually exited screaming, sedated, or not at all. Serrano went in alone. Hours passed. The observers grew uncomfortable. She did not sprint. She did not rush. She mapped the maze by sound, by vibration, by the way the gravity pulled differently near corners. When the temperature dropped low enough to crystallize blood, she slowed her breathing. When the disruptors hit, she sang, quietly, off-key, forcing her brain to maintain rhythm. When she emerged, bruised and bleeding, She nodded politely to the medics and asked where the mess hall was. That trial breaks Hive Queens, an Avesian instructor whispered. Serrano overheard him. Yeah, she said. So did my childhood. They stopped laughing at her after that. Only one cadet treated her like she wasn't a puzzle or a threat. Tkel. He was small for his species, scales dull instead of ceremonial bright. His people existed in the shadow of larger empires, known mostly for dying in border conflicts no one documented properly. He shared a table with Serrano without asking. You should be dead, he said conversationally, tearing into a protein ration. Statistically? She smirked. That makes two of us. He flicked his tongue in amusement. They are pushing you harder. They always do, she replied. Why? She thought about it. About Earth. About recruitment officers smiling like sharks. About gravity that crushed children until they either broke or adapted. Because if I break, she said, they feel safe again. Tkel's eyes narrowed. And if you don't? Serrano met his gaze. Then someone's going to panic. The panic came sooner than she expected. The Academy's final midterm exercise was a live-fire simulation, an old one, rarely used. The Ashur Doctrine. The Ashur Dominion had terrorized the galaxy centuries earlier, their tactics so brutally effective they'd become instructional material. Total encirclement. Logistics annihilation. Psychological warfare baked into every maneuver. The rule of the exercise was simple. You cannot win. Every cadet cohort lost within 20 minutes. The lesson was humility. Survival through surrender. Serrano studied the briefing in silence. Tkel leaned over. We last 12 minutes if we're lucky. She frowned. Why? Because the Ashur don't fight armies, he said. They erase futures. The simulation began. Within moments, the virtual Ashur fleet cut supply lines. Communications lagged. Command nodes burned. The cadet formations collapsed into confusion exactly as the doctrine predicted. Rathkel prepared to terminate the exercise. Then Serrano opened a channel she was not authorized to access. All units, she said, voice calm, cutting through panic. Stop reacting. They expect fear. Instructors shouted. Security protocols screamed. Rathkel raised a blade. Terminate. If we surrender, Serrano continued, we learn nothing. If we lose trying something new, at least we die honest. Tkel swallowed. She's insane. She's human, Rathkel corrected. Let her speak. Serrano's eyes flicked across the tactical display. They're optimized for inevitability. Which means they don't defend the logistics core. That's suicide, an instructor snapped. The feedback will cascade, Serrano finished. Fuel, command latency, fleet cohesion. They win by being certain. Let's make them uncertain. Silence. Then Rathkel made a decision that would echo for decades. Proceed, he said. Serrano smiled, not wide, not happy. Focused. She dumped safeties. Overclocked kinetic batteries. Ordered a feigned retreat that looked exactly like panic. The Ashur AI took the bait. When the strike hit the logistics core, the simulation didn't just end. It collapsed. Virtual Ashur warships tore themselves apart in a chain reaction so violent the Academy's systems lagged trying to render it. The exercise clock froze. Outcome, unprecedented, the AI intoned. The observation chamber was dead silent. Rathkel stared at the display. He had seen the Ashur break civilizations. He had never seen them lose. You violated 17 doctrines, he said slowly. Serrano shrugged. They violated our existence first. Far beyond the Academy, in the black between stars, an Ashur listening post registered a data echo, impossible, forbidden, but real. A ghost of their own doctrine. Broken. And for the first time since their empire was forged in fire, the Ashur Dominion paid attention to a species they had once dismissed as temporary. The Ashur did not debate the anomaly. Debate was for species that believed in uncertainty. Within a single cycle of receiving the data echo, the Dominion activated Purge Authority, an ancient mandate reserved for existential threats. No councils convened. No warnings issued to neutral powers. The conclusion was immediate and unanimous. Humanity had learned too fast. They did not strike Earth. That would have been inefficient. Instead, they targeted the symbol. The Galactic Defense Academy. The message arrived without flourish, translated into every known command language, stripped of emotion and mercy. Surrender the human cadet, or the station will be erased. Commandant Rathkel read it in silence while the tactical feeds bloomed with incoming contacts, black Ashur war forms sliding out of folded space like knives through silk. Their hulls were scarred, ancient, and designed for only one purpose: erasure. Cadets were recalled from training. Defense grids spun up. Instructors shouted orders that no longer mattered. Serrano stood beside Rathkel on the command platform, hands clasped behind her back. "Told you," she said quietly. "They don't forgive humiliation." Rathkel's mandibles clicked, slow and controlled. "You are the cause of this." "Yeah. You endanger every species present." She nodded. "Also yes." He turned to her, towering, bladed limbs tense. "Then you will surrender yourself. This academy exists to prevent wars, not invite them." Serrano looked out at the assembled cadets. Kthari. Avesian. Gorlathi. Species that had mocked her, feared her, trained beside her. Kel met her eyes. "No," he hissed. "They will dissect you. Learn from you. Then they will come for Earth anyway." Serrano exhaled slowly. "Then let me go on my terms," she said. "I don't run from bullies. I grew up with them." Rathkel raised a blade. "You do not command here." She smiled faintly. "No. But I fight here." The first Ashur boarding torpedo struck before the argument could continue. The academy shuddered as hull plating peeled away. Emergency bulkheads slammed down. Gravity spiked erratically as systems struggled to compensate. Ashur warriors poured in, tall, armored, faces hidden behind angular helms etched with conquest glyphs. Their weapons hummed with contained annihilation. They expected terror. They met resistance. Serrano grabbed the nearest fallen massbar, 3,000 kilograms of alloy, and ripped it free from its magnetic locks. "Stay behind me," she snapped. "That is illogical," a Gorlathi rumbled. She glanced back. "So is dying for nothing." The first Ashur trooper charged. Serrano stepped forward, swung the massbar like a battering ram, and folded him into the bulkhead. Armor crumpled. Bone followed. The corridor erupted. Cadets fought with desperation. Serrano fought with intent. She used gravity like a weapon, adjusting her stance as fields fluctuated. She tore weapons from Ashur hands and beat them to death with their own doctrine. When ammunition ran dry, she didn't retreat, she closed distance. An Ashur champion intercepted her near the command deck. He was larger than the rest, plated in ceremonial armor, energy crackling around his blade. "You are the human," he said. "You will end." She wiped blood from her cheek. "You all say that." He struck. She caught the blade with both hands, boots carving trenches into the deck as gravity surged. Muscles tore. Bones screamed. She smiled anyway. Then she twisted. The champion's weapon snapped. She headbutted him hard enough to shatter his helm, grabbed him by the armor, and hurled him through a reinforced bulkhead into vacuum. "Next," she said. On the command deck, Rathkel watched casualty numbers climb, on both sides. Defense grids were failing. The Ashur fleet began orbital alignment. "They will fire," an instructor said. "We cannot hold." Rathkel looked at Serrano on the feed, standing amid bodies, breathing hard but unbroken. He made his decision. "Serrano," he said over the channel, "if you remain, this station dies." She didn't look away from the corridor ahead. "Then give me something worth staying for." Silence. Then Rathkel keyed in an authorization code so old it hurt to remember. Academy AI, he said. Release failsafes. Transfer core access to Cadet Serrano. The AI hesitated. Confirm. Transfer of Apocalypse-level authority. Confirmed, Rathkel said. Serrano's HUD lit up with warnings no cadet should ever see. She inhaled sharply. You're insane, she said. Yes, Rathkel replied. But I am done underestimating you. The Asher fleet locked weapons. Serrano looked at the tactical overlay, at the enemy ships clustering too close, too confident. She grinned. Oh, she said softly. They shouldn't have followed us here. And she triggered the overload. The Academy's reactors screamed as gravity wells inverted. Energy cascaded outward, not as a simple explosion, but as a broadcast. A violent, undeniable message written in physics and fire. Asher warships tore themselves apart mid-volley. Hulls collapsed inward. Command links shattered. Across the sector, sensors recorded the impossible. The Academy burned. The Asher burned with it. And somewhere in the chaos, a single truth became unavoidable. Humans did not need permission to change the rules. They only needed a reason. The smoke cleared. Not entirely, space doesn't forgive, but enough to see the aftermath. The Academy's hull was scarred, corridors gutted, AI modules frying in uneven pulses. Cadets limped, injured and trembling, but alive. Many had never fought alongside anyone like Serrano, and most would never forget it. Commandant Rathkel stood atop the observation deck, surveying the chaos with a strange mixture of awe and dread. Mandibles twitching, he muttered, almost to himself. The galaxy will never forgive this. Serrano walked among the cadets, ignoring their astonished stares. One by one, she checked weapons, patched wounds, and offered a nod of respect. Even Tkel, his scales scorched and eyes wide, managed a weak smile. They'll come back, he said softly, as if speaking to himself. Yeah, Serrano replied, wiping blood from her brow. And we'll be ready. The Asher Dominion fractured within a decade. No fleet dared challenge human ingenuity after witnessing what a single cadet could accomplish. Other empires revised doctrine, redrew borders, and rewrote first contact protocols in bright red ink, all because of one human who refused to be a footnote. Earth gained membership in the Galactic Council, though under more scrutiny than any other civilization. Protocols, oversight, treaties, all designed to contain human potential. Serrano ignored most of it. She had no interest in diplomacy, only preparation. She remained at the Academy, now as an instructor. Cadets trained under heavier weights, harsher simulations, less mercy. The phrase, "lift it one-handed," became an unofficial motto. Every human arrival at the Academy carried that implicit threat: we train the impossible. Years later, Rathkel retired. On his last day, he approached her quietly in the training yard, where she was adjusting gravity calibrations for a new exercise. You changed the balance, he said. The galaxy will never forgive you. Serrano shrugged, tossing a weighted bar effortlessly from one hand to the other. Good. The AI, now deeply integrated with her tactical programming, recorded every moment. It updated its core directive: never underestimate humans. And somewhere in the archives, where alien leaders debated policy, the lesson was etched into every protocol, every tactical assessment, every security manual. When the weight of the universe comes down, humans, lift it. With one hand. And a smile. Somewhere in the distance, across billions of kilometers of cold, dark space, other civilizations whispered warnings to one another. Do not test them. They will make the impossible look casual. And they don't stop. Serrano didn't need the warnings. She was already preparing the next generation. Because in the end, when every empire underestimated humanity, the weight didn't matter. She did. And the galaxy learned to fear what casually lifting the impossible really meant.